You stand over that ball, you take the club back smooth, you feel like you did everything right, and then thud. The club slams into the turf a full 2 inches behind the ball. The ball hops forward and dies. Your wrists sting all the way up your arms. Your buddies go quiet and look at their shoes. I lived inside that thud for 11 years. Every single round. Here's the part nobody ever sold me. Hitting behind the ball is almost never a swing problem. It is a low point problem, and you can move that low point starting on your very next swing. The clearest explanation of this was written down back in 1937, then buried under 100 confusing modern tips that made it worse. It needs no new driver, no lesson package, no launch monitor. Just the clubs already in your bag in about 10 minutes. I remember the exact swing that broke me. 6th hole, a little municipal course outside my hometown. A soft summer evening, a simple pitch over a bunker. I took a divot the size of a dinner plate, a hand's width behind the ball, and watched it plop into the sand. I had just paid for my 4th lesson that month, and I stood there thinking, I am doing everything they told me, and it is only getting worse. That is the confession that started all of this, because I finally learned that most of what I was told about the fat shot was the exact reason I kept hitting it. Let me show you what was really happening. Every swing has a lowest point, one spot where the club head reaches the bottom of its arc and starts climbing back up. Pros call it the low point. When you hit a good iron shot off the turf, that lowest point is not at the ball. It is in front of the ball, toward the target. The club hits the ball first, then the ground, and the divot appears after where the ball was sitting. Ball first, turf second. That is the whole secret of clean contact. When you hit it fat, your low point is behind the ball. The club bottoms out early, digs into the ground, and by the time it reaches the ball, it is already climbing and losing speed. That is the thud. That is the chunk. That is the ball that goes nowhere. So the real question was never, how do I swing better? The real question was, how do I move my low point forward past the ball toward the target? Once I understood that, everything I had been taught started to look like sabotage. Because think about the advice you have heard your whole life. Keep your head down, keep your head behind the ball, stay back, let the club do the work. Every one of those cues tells your body to hang backward, away from the target. And where your weight hangs, your low point follows. I was being coached, sentence by sentence, into the exact fault I was trying to fix. I want you to sit with how expensive that was. I added it up one winter, and it made me sick. Lessons at $50 to $70 each, a new set of irons for $900 because a salesman swore the wider sole would stop my fat shots, 2 so-called game improvement drivers, buckets of range balls 3 nights a week at $8 a bucket. Somewhere north of $4,000 over those years, all to fix a problem that a one-legged golfer had already solved for free before my grandfather was born. Therefore, the first thing you have to accept is uncomfortable. The reason you keep hitting behind the ball is probably not a lack of talent or a lack of practice. It is a handful of famous tips that quietly move your low point in the wrong direction. And the more honestly you have tried to follow them, the worse your contact has become. So let me take you back to the man who figured this out, because his story is the reason I finally trusted the fix. His name was Ernest Jones. He was a golf professional in England, and he was one of the best young players of his era. Then came 1916 and the Battle of the Somme in the First World War. A grenade took his lower right leg. He was carried off the battlefield, and the surgeons amputated below the knee. Now here is the moment that changed golf instruction forever, if anyone had bothered to keep listening. That same year, still recovering, still learning to balance on one leg, Ernest Jones went out and shot an 83 playing on crutches. Not long after, fitted with a wooden leg, he shot a 72. Even balancing on a single leg, sitting on a chair, he could strike crisp iron shots with clean, ball-first contact. Think about what that proves. If a man with one leg, who cannot make a big weight shift, who cannot drive off a strong back leg, can still find the bottom of his swing perfectly every time, then striking the ball clean was never really about power or legs or the violent motions we were all sold. It was about something simpler that most players never learn. Ernest Jones moved to America and taught in New York for decades. In 1937, he put his method into a small book, later expanded and published widely as Swing the Clubhead. His whole teaching came down to one idea. You must feel the weight of the club head swinging on the end of the shaft, and you must let that swinging weight, not your body, control the low point. He would tie a jackknife to a handkerchief and have students swing that, feeling the little weight arc back and forth and always finding the same bottom point. No mechanical positions, no 20-part checklist, just a swinging weight that naturally bottoms out in the same place every time. But here is what happened to that idea. And this is where it starts to make me angry. Jones taught that clean contact is simple, repeatable, and cheap to learn. That message is very bad for business. You cannot sell a $900 set of irons to a man who already strikes it clean with the clubs he owns. You cannot sell a package of 10 lessons to someone who fixed his fat shots in an afternoon with a handkerchief. Simple and permanent does not make anyone money. Complicated and never quite finished makes everyone money. So over the decades, the simple truth got buried. It got replaced by an avalanche of positions and angles and tips, most of which, as I said, tell you to hang back and stay behind the ball. And the whole time, an entire industry quietly profits from your inconsistency. Every fat shot you hit is another reason to buy the next magic wedge, book the next lesson, watch the next tip. Your frustration is the product. I am not saying every teacher is a crook. Most of them mean well. But the system around them rewards complexity, and complexity is exactly what keeps your low point stuck behind the ball. In the last 15 years or so, coaches started putting golfers on force plates. These are pressure sensors built into the ground that measure exactly where your weight, your pressure, is loading through the swing, split second by split second. And what they found lines up perfectly with what a one-legged man knew in 1916. The best ball strikers in the world shift their pressure hard toward the target foot before and through impact. Study after study on tour, players shows something like 80 to 90% of their pressure sitting on the lead foot at the moment the club meets the ball. Their weight is forward, their chest is forward, their hands are ahead of the club head, and so their low point lands in front of the ball exactly where it belongs. The amateur who hits it fat does the opposite. Measurements of everyday golfers show them hanging back, sometimes with the majority of their pressure still on the back foot at impact, often because they are trying to help the ball up into the air. That backward lean drops the low point behind the ball. The science and the old book agree completely. Get your weight and your low point moving toward the target, and the fat shot has nowhere to live. Therefore, the fix was never about swinging harder or keeping your head frozen down. It was about where your pressure and your low point end up. And that is something you can feel and control no matter your age or your handicap. Now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now because I thought it too. You are thinking, that is fine for young athletes and tour pros, but I am 68 years old, I play twice a month, my back is not what it was, and I do not have force plates in my garage. This next part is built specifically for you, because the beautiful thing about the truth Ernest Jones left us is that it works better for the casual player, not worse. You do not need power. You do not need flexibility. You need 3 simple feelings, and you can practice all of them today, at home, on a patch of grass, with nothing you do not already own. Here is the first one, and it is the single fastest change I ever made. If what I just described sounds familiar, the money spent, the rounds ruined, the tips that made it worse, I put the full breakdown of this into a book you can find linked in the description. It comes in 3 versions depending on how deep you want to go. First, swing if you want the core fix fast, deeper fixes if you want to understand the why behind every piece of it, and full system if you want the whole thing mapped out from setup to finish. Thousands of golfers who had given up on ever making clean contact have gone through it, and the most common thing they say is that they wish someone had handed them this 20 years ago. Check the description and see which one fits where you are right now. Now let me put real science on top of that old wisdom, because this is where it clicked for me completely. Set up with your weight already favoring your lead foot and leave it there. For a normal iron, feel about 60% of your weight on your front foot at address and keep it there through the whole swing. Do not shift back and hang. Most weekend players load onto the back foot going back and never get off it. So instead, start forward and stay forward. Just this one change moves your low point toward the target before you even swing. When I did this for the first time, on that same little Muni course, I hit 3 crisp shots in a row and honestly stood there laughing because 11 years of thuds had been that stubborn and that simple. Here is the second feeling. Your shirt buttons or the center of your chest should be ahead of the ball, closer to the target at impact. A great way to rehearse it is to make slow swings and feel your chest turn through and finish pointing left of the target for a right-handed player, with your belt buckle facing where you want the ball to go. If your chest hangs back, the club bottoms out early. Chest forward, low point forward, and here is the third, and this is the one you can do in your living room tonight without hitting a single ball. Take any club, make slow, smooth swings, and let the club head brush the carpet in front of your lead foot. Not behind it, in front of it. Listen for where the swish and the brush happen. Train your ears and your hands to expect that brush on the target side of your stance. You are teaching your body a new bottom point, and you are doing it for free in slippers while the kettle boils. None of that requires money. None of it requires a lesson. None of it requires being young or limber. It requires understanding one thing the industry would rather you never simplify. Ball first, turf second, and the bottom of the swing lives in front of the ball. But let me warn you about the trap that pulls you backward, because if you do not name it, it will undo everything. The trap is the instinct to lift the ball into the air. It feels completely natural. The ball is on the ground, the target is up in the sky, so your brain says get under it and scoop it up. That scooping instinct is the enemy. To scoop, you tip backward, you flip your wrists, you throw the club head out ahead of your hands, and your low point crashes down behind the ball. The very thing you do to help the ball up is the thing that buries the club in the dirt. Here is the mental flip that saved my scorecard. You do not lift the ball. The loft of the club lifts the ball. Your only job is to deliver a descending blow, hands leading, weight forward, and let the angled face do the launching. When you hit down and forward, the ball goes up. When you try to hit up, the ball stays down. It is backward from instinct, and that is exactly why it was so easy for the tip sellers to keep us confused. Think about the cost of that one misunderstanding across your whole golfing life. Every fat shot into a bunker, every chunk chip that never reaches the green, every 3-shot hole that should have been one. Every round where you walked off telling yourself you just do not have the hands for this game. It was never your hands. It was a scooping instinct nobody ever corrected, and a low point stuck behind the ball because you were told to stay back. Therefore, before I give you the finale, let me hand you one more feeling that kills the scoop directly. At address, press your hands slightly toward the target so the shaft leans a touch forward and your lead wrist feels firm and flat. Then keep that lean through impact. Feel like the grip end of the club beats the club head to the ball. If the handle leads, you cannot scoop, and if you cannot scoop, you cannot chunk. Firm lead wrist, hands ahead, low point forward. Say it until it is boring, because boring is what repeatable feels like. Now here is the finale. This is the piece I wish someone had handed me on that soft summer evening 11 wasted years ago. This is the drill that ties Ernest Jones, the force plate science, and everything we just covered into one thing you can do this week to end the fat shot for good. I found the seed of it going back through the old teaching in the same spirit as that 1937 book, and then I sharpened it with the modern low point research. Here is exactly what you do, and you can set it up on any patch of grass or a mat in your yard. First, lay a towel or a head cover flat on the ground about a hand's width, roughly 5 or 6 inches, directly behind your ball, on the side away from the target. Now the ground itself becomes your teacher. If your low point is behind the ball, the club smashes into that towel first, and you feel it and hear it instantly. You get honest, undeniable feedback on every single swing, the kind a launch monitor gives for the price of a dish towel. Your only mission is simple. Miss the towel. Brush the grass in front of it. To miss that towel, your body has no choice but to move its low point forward, exactly where Jones and the science both say it belongs. You will chunk the towel a few times. Good. That is the lesson landing. Within a dozen swings, your body figures out on its own how to get the weight and the club head forward because the towel will not let it cheat. Second, add the pressure piece. Do the same towel drill, but exaggerate feeling your weight roll onto the outside of your lead foot as you swing through, until you can almost lift your back heel off the ground at the finish and hold your balance there, posing like a statue facing the target. This is you copying in slow motion that 80 to 90% forward pressure the best players live in. Miss the towel, finish on the front foot, hold the pose, miss the towel, finish forward, hold, over and over. And third, borrow Ernest Jones directly. Before you hit anything, take one club and make 10 slow, lazy swings where you do nothing but feel the weight of the club head swinging like a pendulum, brushing the grass in that same forward spot each time. No hit, no effort, no target, just the swinging weight finding the same low point again and again. You are not building muscle, you are teaching your nervous system where the bottom of the arc lives. That is the whole thing the handkerchief and the jackknife were ever meant to do. Towel behind the ball, weight finishing forward, club head swinging free to a low point in front. Do those 10 minutes a session, and I promise you the change is not gradual. It is almost rude how fast it happens. The man with one leg proved the principle over 100 years ago. The force plates confirmed it in our own time. And now it is sitting in your hands, with a towel you already own, ready to work on your very next swing. That is what they buried under all the noise. Not a secret grip, not a magic club, just the plain, cheap, permanent truth that clean contact comes from a low point in front of the ball, and that any golfer alive can learn to put it there. So here is what really happened over those 11 years. It was never that I lacked the hands for this game. It was that a simple, free, century-old truth got quietly paved over by an industry that profits from your next fat shot. And I paid for that silence with money, with ruined rounds, and with a slow belief that I just was not good enough. You are not too old for this. You were just never told the one thing that matters. You are the kind of person who would rather understand the real cause than keep buying the next promised cure. That is exactly who this is for. So do this for me. Go grab a towel right now, lay it a hand's width behind a ball in the yard, and make 10 swings trying to miss it. Then come down to the comments and tell me one thing. On your very first try, did you smash that towel or did you miss it clean? Type it out, towel or clean, because I read every one of these and I want to know how fast this worked for you. And if you are done losing money and rounds to problems that were solved before you were born, come with me. This channel exists to dig up the simple, forgotten fixes that somebody profited from burying. Because the next one I am working on is the real reason your chip shots come out cold and dead off the face, and it has nothing to do with your wedge and everything to do with a single setup mistake that almost every amateur makes without knowing it. Stick around, and let us keep taking this knowledge back, one buried secret at a time. This video showed you why the low point matters. Inside the Old Ways Almanac, I walk you through Ernest Jones's low point drill, swing by swing, right where this video left off. Ask me your own question, and I answer you myself, not some machine. You won't be alone in there. Folks like you are already with us. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen. Cancel anytime, one click, no risk.